Everyone, today is a very special feast day in the church. It's the feast of Saint John Paul II. I think he's the only saint I can say I actually met. Met him twice. Saw him several times. My first memory of him was a month before we moved to Canada in September of 1982. He came to Bellahouston Park in Glasgow, Scotland. I wasn't that into church back then, but we went to church and get dragged to church. And I remember he was driving around the Pope Mobile, and he passed our section where I was with my family, and I ran to the opposite corner, and he passed by me and he looked at me and he said, "Hi, James." No, I'm only kidding. He didn't say that. But he looked at me. I remember, I was like, just had turned 13, and I just kind of was moved to tears. I don't know why I was moved to tears. And a couple of years later, a year and a half later, I saw him in Halifax. He came to Halifax, and had a very similar emotional experience, a connection with this man. I actually got to meet him in the year 2000 during World Youth Day in Toronto. I had been out in Castle Gandolfo the night before doing some video interviews and had gotten home to our campsite. We were staying out by Ostia, out by the coast. I got home around 2 in the morning. And around 4:30 in the morning, I was shaken awake by my friend Father Paul Morris, who said, "James, get up. We've been invited to Mass with the Pope." Guess where the Mass was? Back at Castle Gandolfo, where I had just come a few hours before. So half an hour later, I'm dressed up, and we're off in a taxi to Castle Gandolfo, and I'm wearing my fancy shoes, and my feet are full of blisters because of all the walking in World Youth Day. I was kind of hobbling around in my dress shoes. And we had Mass with the Holy Father. I remember he came out. I remember at that time he was very, very slow, but I remember seeing him, coming in from the side and genuflecting during the Mass, where he could barely move. It was quite something. But here's my claim to fame. We were in a line afterwards to meet the Pope, and we were introduced to the Pope by the Pope's secretary as due sacerdoti americani, so 2 American priests. And Pope John Paul was kind of slumped over because he had Parkinson's, and he was slumped over like this. And I said, "No, Canadese," which means no, Canadian. And Pope John Paul II looked up like this at me. That was it. That was my claim to fame. I went down and I received a rosary from him. I had thought that maybe I would tell him what an inspiration he'd been to me, but I was a wee bit tongue-tied. I did meet him again, similarly, about 2 years later, but without the dramatics, so to speak. He was an incredible inspiration to me. We went on to form a media production ministry called John Paul II Media Institute, which used to make a lot of video resources for parishes in honor of him and his commitment to evangelization and the creation of resources, using the media for the sake of evangelization. And I think at that time it was a stepping stone for what became Divine Renovation, because the realization was, we can have all the video resources we want, but if our church and parishes do not claim or step into a missionary identity, it's not going to make any difference. We can have amazing videos, amazing courses, but unless they're used properly, it won't make a difference. So all that I just want to share with you on this special feast day. So I want to thank all of you who are supporters of Divine Renovation Ministry and who are working for renewal in your parish. Pope Saint John Paul II, pray for us.